So now that we've talked about congruent triangles and identifying different types of congruent triangles, like side, 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 side angle, and so on, what we want to move into now is actually kind of the bigger picture of congruent triangles, and that is congruent triangle proofs. Now, a proof is a way that we use deductive statements to prove that something is true, or deductive statements is usually using facts. So here's a fact, 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 and then these facts together tell me another fact, or force there to be another fact to be true. Now, let me show you what it's going to look like a little bit here. What we're going to do, our end goal here, is to prove that the triangles are congruent. So we're going to use what we've already done. So let's take a look at this real quick. And before we even start the proof, let's just talk about the different things we know. Well, we have some given statements, okay? So that means things that we know to be true. So I know that AB is congruent to DE, and I know that angle B is congruent to D. And what else do I know here? I also know I have a vertical angle here, right? Something like this. And so if I was doing this like a regular identify problem, this is how I'd set it up. I would set it up and I'd say I have an angle, and a side. Now, let's quick pause here. I know some people were having some problems with this last week. How do I know if this is an angle, angle, side, or if this is an angle, side, angle? How do I know? Because if I count it one way, if I count it kind of like this, I get angle, side, angle. And if I count it this way, I get angle, angle, side. So how do I tell the difference here? Well, I tell the difference because angle, side, angle has to have the side trapped in between the two angles, or contained or included side is sometimes what people will say. So the angles need to have the side in between the two angles in order for this to be angle, side, angle. Otherwise, it's angle, angle, side. So this is going to be angle, angle, side. So if I was doing this problem regularly, I'd say, okay, I know these things, and then I know angle, angle, side. Well, the proof basically takes what we know and kind of documents it. Kind of like if you were laying out a case in a courtroom. We have the fact he was at the location, and we have a fact his fingerprints were on the murder weapon. We have a fact he had the motive. Okay, and you're building these facts to get to a final conclusion or a final proof. So in our case, we're not trying to prove somebody's a murderer. What we're trying to prove is that these triangles are congruent. So let me show you what we do. So the first thing you want to do in any proof is you want to list the given statements. Now on the left side, we're going to say, state a fact. And the right side is going to tell us why we're allowed to state this fact. So the first thing we want to do is let's just start with our first given statement. AB is congruent to ED. Okay, I want to include these little lines on the top. All right, so AB is congruent to ED. How do I know that's true? I know it's true because it's given to me. So I'm just going to put given here. All right, so AB is congruent to ED because it is given. All right, and let's do our next one here. Angle B is congruent to angle D. And that's also given. So anytime we do a proof, the very first thing we're going to do, it doesn't have to be in the order they give them to us, but we need to list all of our given statements. So AB is congruent to ED, B is equal to angle B is equal to angle D. All right, feeling okay so far. All right, so the next thing we want to do is we want to check for our most common things that show up in congruent triangles, which remember are reflexive sides and vertical angles. Now in the proofs today, there are only going to be basically 3 different reasons that we're going to use. We're going to use given, reflexive, vertical, and then also whatever our triangle congruency proof is. So SAS, SSS, something like that. So, but everything leading up to our congruent triangles is going to either be given, reflexive, or vertical. So we're going to keep it real simple today. Tomorrow we're going to talk about a few more different reasons we might run into. And we'll kind of build into it instead of giving them all at once. So we already talked about this. The next thing I also know I have some vertical angles, right? Now, here's a common mistake. Some people like to put angle C is congruent to angle C. However, I don't know what angle C is. There's lots of different angles that I could be talking about. So, there we go. So when I do this, what I need to do, angle, I need to use 3 letters to talk about my angles here because C could be referring to many different angles. So I'll say ACB is congruent to angle ECD. ECD. All right, so angle ABC is congruent to angle ECD. And the reason I know that to be true is vertical angles. Okay, or we'll just say vertical. All right, so up until this point, at the very least, your proof should have 4 steps. There should be 3 facts and then a congruency statement. Sometimes there's more, but there should be at least 3 steps every time. We list our given stuff. We look for any vertical angles, reflexive sides. And then we say, okay, so now I've got angle, angle, side for my triangle. So I'm going to put triangle ABC is congruent to triangle EDC. And then the reason here is angle, angle, side. And now we've finished writing our proof. Now, oops, I totally missed the C there, didn't I? All right, ABC is congruent to DED, there we go, that's a little better, EDC. All right, so do you see how that works? Now notice a couple important things here. When I'm setting up my triangle proofs, the A side needs to match the E, and so notice they don't, it's the only ones without a markings at the angle. The B side needs to match the D, the C with the C. So when I'm writing my statements out, which we've talked about this before, make sure your letters are in the right order. The second thing, when we're doing congruent triangle proofs, until you hear otherwise from me, we will always end with a congruent triangle. Every proof always ends with whatever the proof statement is. That's when you're done, right? When you've proved the thing you've been asked to prove, then you're done. So this proof statement's always going to go in the last statement slot. And then your reasons for now are always going to be some sort of SSS, HL, something like that. All right, so hopefully we kind of took it step by step here. We're going to look at one more, then let me show you what your assignment looks like, because it's going to be a little easier than what I'm showing you here. All right, so let's kind of walk through this like a regular proof. So the first thing we want to do is we want to look at what I'm trying to prove. I'm trying to prove 2 triangles congruent. Okay, now I also want to look at my given statements. So I'm going to put those here. AB is congruent to CD. And the reason there is given. All right, let's look at the next one. AD is congruent to CB. Same reason, also given. All right, hopefully we're feeling good so far. So I've got my 2 given statements. The next thing I want to do is I want to look for reflexive angles, or reflexive sides and vertical angles. I don't have any vertical angles, but look at this, BD. And in fact, if you want, you can actually mark the triangle as you're going. So I've got AB is congruent to CD. I've got AD is congruent to BC. Let's take a look here. BD, that's a reflexive side, right? So let's go ahead and list that out. BD is congruent to DB. Now, why didn't I say BD is congruent to BD? That's fine. If you do that, that's fine. The reason I switched the orders, if you look at the congruency statement, notice our orders are switched. That's because the triangles, ABD, angle B matches with angle D on the other triangle. If you just put BD is congruent to BD, that's fine. If you want to be like really technically correct, you're going to want to put, pay attention to your triangles to see if you're supposed to keep them the same or not. You're not going to get penalized if you do BD is congruent to BD and I wanted the opposite. Like, just so long you get BD and DB or of some sort, you're okay. So why do I know BD is congruent to BD? Well, we know reflexive sides, or just say reflexive. All right. All right, I've got at least 3 statements. There's nothing else I need to add here because now I have congruent triangles. So I've got side, side, side. So I can say triangle ABD is congruent to triangle CDB. And all of that is by side, side, side. And my proof is done. So that's what we're going to look at today. We're just starting with kind of some easy proofs, and we're going to fill in the blanks. So let me show you what yours is going to look like, because it's going to look a little bit different than what I'm doing. So this is your first proof in the assignment. So notice you only actually have to fill in 3 blanks. So pay attention to the questions here. So statement 2 goes here. Statement or reason 3 is here, reason 4 is there. Okay, so I do have them, and what you have to do is I'm just going to give you a couple options. Now notice I couldn't get the angle sign to fit in Google Forms, so I just wrote the word angle out, and then also notice our segment line is missing, but I figured you guys were smart enough to kind of understand that technically we should be putting segments over our segments here and angles in front of our angles. So you'll choose whichever one you think it is, whichever one you think goes in slot 2, 3, and 4. You only need to do 3 proofs. That's the assignment for today. So do it well. Be careful. I'm not going to grade this like say you get a 90 on it. I'm not going to give you 90%. I'll give you full credit. Usually, as long as you get about 75% on these things, I'll give you full credit. I do want to see that you're actually doing it right. I think it's set up so that you can submit it more than once if you really got stuck on it. But what I don't want to see is I don't want to see I got 0% right the first time and then I got 100% right the second time because I just copied down the answers. Okay, that's not going to get you full credit. But if you make mistakes and you're struggling and you're working on it, like that's totally fine. This is practice, right? So we want you to be able to practice without fear of getting punished for just practicing. So let me know if you have any questions. I know it's a little bit of a longer video, but this stuff needs a little more explanation. In the next video, we're going to take a look a little deeper at some more complicated proofs.